Alright, hi again. Thought the most fitting subject for part 3 of this little Cura series would be to talk about virtual tools or virtual extruders. The word tool or extruder, we're going to use them kind of interchangeably. But virtual tool, as you might expect, is a tool that doesn't actually physically exist. On the A10M, A20M, we have two extruders, two tools. But when we want to do mixed colors, we need to add virtual tools, virtual extruders that don't actually exist in real life. But we need to be able to address them in order to assign them to a model. So we create virtual tools. So the first thing we need to do, we're going to pick up right here where we left off with our little lizard here. He does have 3 parts, not very exciting, just the eyes are separate than the other parts, but the point is being able to add our 3rd extruder for the M models or the 4th extruder for the T models. And you can have, I don't know how many you can have in Cura. I've never tried to add very many. I think I've had as many as 5 or 6 tools here. But for me, Cura gets a little slow if I add a whole bunch. So I try to stay away from it in Cura. So the first thing we need to do is we need to add to our profile here a 3rd extruder, and we do that by going up to the settings, printer settings, manage printers, and then machine settings. Number of extruders is right here, so we need to change this to 3, and there's my little bit of lag already. There, we have our 3rd extruder, and we have to remember to come up here to this tab. Come on, speed up please. There we go. And change the material diameter. .75. There we go. Now we have 3 extruders. Now the unfortunate thing that I found out this morning, so when we add this 3rd extruder, of course it has all its default settings. I thought there was going to be, you see it's all default. I thought there was a magic button here somewhere I could push that would copy all the values that we've already changed here over to that extruder. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So what we have to do is go down through all the settings and transfer them to extruder 3, because we want them for this part to be all the same settings. Any that you see with this little chain link means that that value is already set for all these extruders. It's shared all the time, so if you change these values, then they're set here. So we don't have to worry about this. Line width we do. What we can do is go down through, right click, copy value to all extruders. And in a case like this, once we change this value, it'll automatically change all of the rest that are under that subheading. But at some point you'll want to go back, switch back and forth, and make sure you've got all the settings set the same. We're going to just buzz down through this for now, because we know we didn't really change that many settings in part 1. We can kind of just look down through here. Infill we changed, so we need to copy that value. We didn't change anything down here. We left this all default. Temperature, I think 200 is the default temperature anyway. Oh yes, but we do need to do the temperatures just to make sure. Yeah, that one we changed. I see, the ones with the F are the ones we changed, definitely. Build plate temperature stays the same because we only have one build plate. We didn't change any flow. But we do need to keep our eye out for the standby temperature. Okay, retraction. I'm not sure about, so I'm going to click it anyway. Retraction distance, I know we changed. Speed, we changed. This one should be automatic. Okay, there's a standby temperature. We can make sure we got that one. Anyway, I apologize about this. If I had known ahead of time, if I had realized it, I would have, in part 1 of this series, I would have just said, let's just start off with 3 and here's why. Oh, speeds I know we changed. Okay, those we didn't mess with. Acceleration control, turning it on is enabled, but we need to copy our values. I think that does it for those. Again, I apologize for this. If I had thought about this, I would have certainly done this a little differently. Alright, we're almost done. Oh, we didn't need to copy that one because it had that, but as I said, you'll want to go back through and make sure these have all changed, and you can do that for each section. Like we're looking at travel here. If you switch to another extruder here, it'll already be in this section, so you don't have to go looking for it. That's one handy thing, I guess. Go back to our initial extruder here and keep going. I think, let's see, we change this value. Alright, once we get all these values changed, what we can do, oh, that's linked, so that has to be the same anyway. Alright, that should be it. Okay, that's all we changed, I'm pretty sure. So at this point, what we can want to do is, you may want to save this as a separate profile. You can do single, dual, or triple color prints with this profile. But what's going to happen is you're going to end up, say you do a single color print, you change some settings here for the single color print, but you haven't transferred them over here, it'll get all confused. So it's probably just as easy to go up here, create a profile from the current settings and overrides. That's what we want to do. And we can just name it whatever you want, obviously, so you know what it is. And now we have our new profile that we're using. Okay, sorry about that again. That took extra time that we really didn't need to do. Let's move on to this now. How do you do a mix? Now that we have our third extruder, we need to tell it what sort of a mix of the other two extruders that it's going to have. And how we do that is we go back to settings, back to the printer settings, manage printers, machine settings, and what we're looking for is this box here with the start G code. And in the start G code, you can see like where this says prime extruder and it has a semicolon in front of it, that is a comment. So in other words, whatever you type after a semicolon won't affect anything. It's just there as a comment so you know what happens. So you can make these comments if you want or not. And let's just call this mix for Extruder 3. Just so you know what it is. Okay, how we set the mix is there's two M codes that we use to do this with. That's M163 and M164. M163, get out of the way, you. 163 S0. S in this case stands for set or save, and the 0 is actually our first extruder. The difference between Cura calls the extruders 1, 2, and 3. In G code, the extruders are 0, 1, and 2. So you kind of have to keep that in mind so you don't get confused there. So extruder 1 is 0. So we're going to set extruder 0 to a percentage. Let's go with a 60-40 mix. Doesn't really matter for these purposes. And we do that with P 0.60. So our percentages here with P need to add up to 1. That's why we use the decimal. So in this case, the P 0.60 is 60%. So our mix is going to have 60% of extruder 0 or extruder 1 as far as Cura is concerned. So we need to set extruder 2, or in the G code, S1. The percentage of this one obviously must be 40%. You're using an A10T or A20T, you'd have to add your third line of M163 S2 and its percentage, and again all three have to add up to 1. So we have our percentage set. Now we need to actually save it and assign it to a tool. For that we use M164 S, you guessed it, 3. Is that correct? Sure. We can call this whatever we want. We can call it S12. No, we can't. I'm sorry. I shouldn't do that. For Cura, we can't call it that, and in this case, we can't call it that. As far as Cura is concerned, it's extruder 3 is going to be S2, or tool 2, in G code. So we have to name it 2 in order for Cura to call it correct. That's it. Our mix is now set. So whenever we call for extruder 2, or in Cura, extruder 3, it's going to be a 60-40 mix. That's all we need to do. That mix is set. So let's close that. Okay, so now we need to assign that part to the model the same as we did before. And if you watched the other two, one of the last things we did before we went on to the prime tower was we selected all these parts of the model and then grouped them. So you see, if you select it, the entire model is selected. We now need to ungroup these so we can change which extruder is going to print which part of this model. So we go up to Edit, Ungroup Models. So now they're all separate, you see. You can select on different ones. So now, one thing we want different is the eyes. Which part do we want to print with which? It's really up to you, depends on the model. I'm going to say let's use our new tool, our virtual extruder, for this part. There we go. Anything in yellow now is going to print with our mix, our new extruder 3. Anything in green prints with extruder 1, and the eyes, the only thing in red, are going to print with extruder 2. So there you go. Well, now we need to address our prime tower. But first, let's just go ahead and slice so we can look at this in preview. Okay, hit preview. Now we can see that since we added a third extruder and a third thing that needs to purge, there's no hole left in our prime tower. So depending on our colors, if we need to change the minimum volume for each of these, we can, but for now we're just going to assume that 60 cubic millimeters is fine for all of those. All we have to do is make our prime tower a little bit bigger. Let's try 35. Slice again. And again, what we're looking for is that there's a small hole in the middle of this tower, so we know that there's enough area to purge the amount of volume we've selected. There we go, there's a small hole there, so we only had to change it to 35 millimeter diameter. So there you go. That's how you go ahead and add your third, fourth, fifth. You can keep adding as long as your Cura will handle it. And then you could set different mixes if you wanted to print each one of these in a mix. You certainly could. But I think that does it for this one. I hope that clears up how to add your virtual tools into Cura and print multiple colors using mix. See you on the next one.